All right. And we're live. So welcome back, everybody. This is another awesome show, which I say pretty much every time we do this, another show of The Author's Dilemma. And tonight we have a special guest, Brady Hunsaker, which I'm probably butchered his name. Do you say Hunsaker? Okay. Yeah, I should have asked that beforehand. Anyway, I'm J.E. Jack, and I write horror and urban fantasy.
I'm Hiram Hawks. I write hard sci-fi and sci-fantasy.
I'm Jennifer Carr. I write Christian contemporary romance and clean contemporary romance, I think.
And?
Awesome. Well, and I'm Brady, and I write fantasy of various kinds.
Awesome. So we missed last week because we had a lot of things going on in our lives, and Jen has a new book coming out, and Hiram went to an event. So last week we just couldn't make it, but we're back this week, and we're so happy to be here to be in front. And if you have any questions, don't forget to use the comments to let us know. And if you're in the future listening to us on your favorite podcast system or platform, you can send us an email at authordilemma@gmail.com. All right. So what's the news for this week?
People are up in arms. Well, and it's an age-old conversation that we've had so many times, but authors are being called out for using AI. It's pretty insane. And there was one author in particular, I will not say her name, but she used AI, got called out, lied about it, and then when proof started showing up, she backtracked and started apologizing and asking for forgiveness, and basically she got canceled over it. And so
AI as far as what? Like written
book
or
cover. Hers was book cover.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. And so that had me thinking. I kept thinking, I was like, all right, so what if I hired somebody to do my book cover? They used AI and I didn't know it 'cause I'm not an artist. I don't know anything about design and that kind of thing. So then I get called out and I get canceled. I don't know. But she admitted eventually that she had done it. But she at first was like, it wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Well, I mean, there's a plausible deniability.
There is, but there isn't. Here's why I say there is no plausible deniability unless you are completely oblivious. And that is, you iterate. Everything is iteration. So they're going to send you a concept. Even if they're going to, I sent a hand sketch of my first cover, which then the artist said, this is garbage, and fixed it. And we iterated. He sent me rough drawings, digital, and then he refined them and refined them. You cannot do iteration that way on AI. It is an all or nothing thing.
I don't know, because there was another author about 3 weeks ago who her book cover was not AI. She got accused of it. She had proof that she had sketched it herself, and they still were like, nah. Like, you can't
win. That's just people being jerks.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You know, and that's the thing. Well, it's unfortunate because I see AI as a tool in some instances because yes, I'm artistic to a degree, but I can't do the books myself. And, but I could see, getting a kind of like a feel for it to send to your artist to be able to follow up. But I wonder if it would have been different had they been honest a bit from the get go. Hey, this is an AI book cover.
Yeah, maybe.
But then again, I mean, there's always going to be people that are going to be
policy.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be people that are going to be like, no, pitchforks and burning.
Oh, yeah, because then you have people in the comments who are like, well, you shouldn't even use Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid. I'm like, well, you can bite me. You lost me in that argument. I'm doing it.
As a photographer that's been around for a long, long time, I remember when we went from film to digital in Photoshop. And heaven forbid, there were some purists that were like, if you crop just a little bit, well, you're not a photographer. And I'm like, really? Come on now. Anyway. So what are your thoughts on that, Brady?
It's funny because I came across a lot of those on gotta think of the app now.
Threads?
What's that? Threads.
Is it on Threads? Yeah.
So I came across a lot of that on Threads, like literally just in the last couple of days. And too much pitchfork stuff going on in my opinion. Because in all reality, I mean, like when I first started writing, I thought AI was pretty cool. I made a couple things, and then as soon as I kind of realized like a lot of stuff, I was like, oh yeah, I guess I probably shouldn't do that, and so I stopped doing them. Right. So I didn't lie about anything, and it's just it's water under the bridge, and I just go forward, and it's not something I'm gonna ever use, and I pay all my artists and do all that stuff, right? So just different ways to learn. And again, I mean, some people are going to make mistakes, and we have a very brutal, how do I put it? Some people are very brutal in the way that they approach, like trying to, I don't know, seek justice for whatever reason, right? And I think it's just too brutal. And in my opinion, I think people can be a little more compassionate in these scenarios. In all reality, yes, like using AI stuff for marketing reasons or things like that, like it's not something that I would ever promote, right? I would never do that. Yeah, right. My own idea is like I've used kind of that kind of concept where like I might personally use something kind of like Jay Jack was saying there, like if I want to visualize what a character looks like, yeah, I might go like make something out of AI and I might use it personally. There's no way I'm going to ever like use that for a marketing thing or something like that, right? It's completely different. It's a whole different realm. But yeah, the way that people they tackle so much about it, I'm not surprised by someone like trying to lie to hide that.
Right.
As like they're terrified. And, like,
I mean, I've used AI for like even on my Facebook page or my Instagram, whatever. I've used AI images like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for my character, or this is, but I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different thoughts. But then again, I mean, kind of going back to Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid, I mean, that's partly AI, but then also ChatGPT is fantastic about, I mean, and I've, here again, I haven't used it to write things, but I've used it kind of like spitball ideas like, hey, give me some summaries of this or give me thoughts of that. And then, but at the end of the day, I'm writing those words.
My favorite thing to do with ChatGPT is to ask it questions and watch it get them wrong. That is one thing. Now, maybe it's because I work in AI, as in it is my day job in some cases. But I use it in a heavy industry. I use it in science, not in creative venture. Well, it's still creative. It's just not. It's not this kind of creative. And honestly, it's garbage in, garbage out. And what we have done in making ChatGPT and everything, so this is buyer beware. We have taken all of everything, which includes the books you've DNF'd, and we put it all and mashed it all together, and we're spitting stuff out. And I'm sorry, I don't finish all the books I read because some of them are not really well written. And so you're getting, if you write with AI or you create art with AI, you're kind of getting what you deserve.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. I think we beat that horse dead.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
of course, I mean, that's yeah. I mean, and that's a conversation we have from time to time because, and I don't think it's going to go away.
It's not.
And I will say this, and this has been a big gripe of mine lately. And I told you guys before this with the tragedy that's going on we got a comment. Let's see.
Welcome to the show.
Yes. Ken V 2000. I feel that writing is an art. If I wanted someone to buy my writing, my art, how can I be the kind of person to not pay an artist to create a book cover?
Fantastic.
Agreed. Yes.
That's a great question. Yep.
All right. So you were saying about a tragedy.
Oh no! Well, the tragedy that's going on in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. I mean, there's a lot of tragedy going on, and what I can't stand is there's enough stories and there's enough pictures of real people doing real things, and now we're entering an environment where people are creating AI to gain exposure, and here again, I am of the Christian faith, but I usually see it in context of, oh, we need to pray for blah, 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 or some other charity, but they always say it's like a mockery. And it just lately, it's
for attention. It's for clout. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it's just greasy. It's just,
this is why I call my phone a depression brick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It's true.
Sorry, Brady. We didn't mean to go along that. Welcome to the conversation, buddy. Anyway, so let's moving on. By the way, Ken B, thank you so much for your comment. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. However,
it's valid.
Yeah, no, it totally is valid. So, however, I do understand where someone that has no money to start, right? I mean, I would rather and here again, if you have the money to invest in a artist, great. if you can't make your own, because I made my own covers when I first started and they're god awful. And then I eventually paid for somebody to do it. But I could also see where, and here again, right or wrong, people do it differently. And we're, like I said, we're entering a new world. I could see where someone could use that to kind of get started is what I'm saying.
Barter system. Use the barter system.
If you can find it, fantastic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my thought. All right, moving on. All right, so everyone, so glad that you're here. And Brady, man, first off, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come join us and have a conversation about your process, your life, and how you got started.
And your upcoming Kickstarter.
And yes. So tonight, everyone, we're going to be talking about Kickstarters. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. So Brady, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and just kind of tell us, what got you started? Like, where were you in life and how did you start this dilemma that we all have being authors?
Yeah. It's funny because I remember the exact moment. I was sitting in 6th grade. I was 11 years old. And there was this other kid in class, like we were all doing assignments, but this other kid in class was like off in the corner and he was like drawing something. And I asked the teacher, it was my English class. And I was like, hey, what's he doing? Like, we're all working on something. Like, what's he doing over there? And he's like, oh, he's working on his book. And I just, I decided I'd let him do that. And I was like, Josh is writing a book. I can write a book better than Josh. And that was literally my motivation I was like, I wanted to write a book better than Josh. And so yeah, from then on, it just became my personality that I was going to be.
You're better than Josh.
So, yeah.
Well, my name is Joshua, and
awesome.
Yeah, so my name is Joshua, and so yes, you are writing better than Josh. Go ahead.
It was you. No, I'm just
kidding.
I'm sure you two are quite the same age.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit older. I wish I was in your age. So you're in 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And moving on. So you're all throughout high school. Did you go to college for it, or what? Tell us about all that.
So I kept writing. I think I wrote my first book. I finished it when I was, 14, 15, something like that. But I would always be writing in class.
That's awesome.
And, yeah. And then I had a really cool teacher in middle school who was like, yeah, I'll read the book. And he was super cool about that. And honestly, it wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Like I was pretty young. It wasn't very good. And
if it was, we'd be really mad.
Yeah. And then I rewrote it again. And then again, I kind of took a sabbatical for a while, didn't write for a while, but I still had this like in the back of my mind. It was like, that's always what I wanted to do. But I knew that I probably wouldn't make a lot of money doing that. So ended up going to college. I studied English. I thought I'd be a teacher and then I'd write on the side. And then I learned that teachers work more hours than I would want to work. And they don't make very much money that I would want to make. And so I ended up kind of just chasing some money, and I work in sales at a software company, and so that's the day job. But found that I wanted something specifically where I could have time to devote to write, and be free to do that and have some flexibility there. And so I still just kind of kept the goal of like writing a little bit every day. I wrote a couple more books. Just never felt like they were of the right quality yet. And then I went to LTUE actually, which is that conference over in Provo, and or convention in Provo. And I heard about, I met David Farland, and David Farland had this course online about, like this kind of group you can join. And I joined that group, and, I kind of learned that, David Farland's the guy who he used to teach at BYU, kind of like Brandon Sanderson did. Right. And, he was all that stuff. What's that? Yeah. Right. So, I was like, cool. He's actually, and there's a lot of courses out there, and a lot of people are trying to be like, oh, take my course and, whatnot. And, but he was the one that had receipts of like, I've literally taught a bunch of best-selling authors. Right. So I was like, cool, I'll take some of his courses. And so, I subscribed to that. It was pretty cheap. Again, it's still cheap.
I think it's what Apex Writers or something.
Yep, Apex Writers.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. That's something that I need to follow up on. It's one of those things that Hiram's told me about before, and I've looked at it. And it looks like a really fantastic resource, and it's just one of those things that I think about it, and then months go by, and then I'm reminded of it.
Yeah,
but
it's better. Well, and you can subscribe for just 1 month and you get full access
Right.
to all the courses. And so it was like, anyway, so I subscribed for a year. I was attending all the like Zoom meetings and stuff, but didn't feel like I was getting much out of that. It was more so like the courses from David himself about just writing craft. And it was like, okay, here, you can write a really good book. But I felt pretty discouraged about publishing for a while. Cause honestly, like at the time, a lot of the discussions that we're having, and this was a few years ago.
What year was it? Roughly.
I don't know. This was maybe 6 years ago.
Okay.
So what are we? That was 2018. So 2018, again, I was going to some conventions and stuff like that. And this is gonna sound kind of weird, but like a lot of this stuff was about like, hey, if you're a man writing young adult literature, just know that only 20% of the books that are required right now are men writing YA books. And I was like, oh, that's not a very good stat for me, right? And so he was like, just know that like if you're gonna write, YA as a man and you're gonna, whatever, then it just needs to be, really good. You need to write a really dang good book so that someone would acquire it. And at the time, I never really thought about self-publishing at all, because I'll confess that I had in my mind that self-publishing was not for me. Anybody can do that. It's probably not very good quality, right? I literally had all those misconceptions about it, right? So not to say that like there aren't some that are total crap, because there could be, yeah. But
there are also trad published ones that are total crap.
Yeah, true, right. So, but so there's that whole. I guess I had all these misconceptions about it, but then someone in that group had mentioned, hey, if you guys haven't already, you should join TikTok. There's a whole book talk community on there that is really, really cool. And so I was like, I don't ever want to do TikTok. And now I had this trepidation about it, but it's going to sound kind of funny, but I literally, the day before I saw that comment, I had said a prayer about like, hey, what should I do to like further my author career? And that's when I saw that comment. And that's the thing that hit me, was like, that's what I'm supposed to do, is make a book talk account. So for whatever reason, kind of had this kind of divine component of that, where I was like,
are you still on TikTok?
I am, absolutely.
Oh, man. I went through this,
the belly of the beast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, TikTok's been great as far as like, I met Jen there. I met Hiram there. Actually, I met Jen, and then through Jen, I met Hiram.
Okay.
But man, I just couldn't keep up. Like, there was a period of time where I was like really focused and making some videos every day, but then, life is life. And then I'm just on a TikTok very much.
Yeah.
So kudos to y'all that continue on.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of friends. They obviously they approach authoring in different ways, and that's fine. But yeah, for me, it was just, I think it was, my trepidation about self-publishing started to kind of dissipate a little bit as I got that. And I was like, cool, you know what? I think I'll read some of these books, and started reading them and saw that there were some good quality things there, and saw that a lot of my friends were doing really, really well as self-published authors. And I thought, wow, okay, so I probably didn't have the right idea about this. But my main trepidation at that point was then I don't want to have to market myself. But literally like a month and a half later, I had like 10,500 followers on TikTok. And I was like, oh, this is actually like not that bad.
It's not that hard.
I'm already marketing.
Look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You hit the beginning.
So I was like, I'm pretty much doing it already. So, I mean, what's holding me back? And so I looked into it a lot more and saw that, I looked at kind of like the steps involved in making it happen. And I had, refined my craft a little better. So my writing style, I think, was way better. I had written 5 books by then. I hadn't published anything. And I'd done some querying, which I absolutely hated, especially when they were like, hey, give me some comp titles. And maybe I'm not well read enough to know comp titles. But I also, I remember one of these concepts that, I think it was either Brandon Sanderson or even David Farrell, that had said, write something unique. And so I wrote stuff that I thought was pretty unique, and I wanted it to be really different on purpose. And then so for me, coming up with comp titles is just so hard, and that's so critical to querying. It's an important component. And you talk to any acquiring editor and stuff like that, and then I was like, yeah, I mean, comp titles, we need those. That's how we get a good idea for it. And then
so explain to us exactly what a comp title is.
This is Lord of the Rings meets Dune or something, when people say something like that. But you have to make it current, so it has to be something that's published within the last couple of years. So, and again, I probably 2 books that have been published in the last 2 years.
This drives me insane. I truly have, every comp title I have found is 5 to 50 years old. And I even did use ChatGPT, well, the equivalent, Copilot, for this. I put my book in a secured version of Copilot, so it doesn't have external access. It's secured through my company. And I ran it through and I said, give me comp titles. And I went a dozen comp titles and not a single one was earlier than The Martian, which was 2015.
Wow, yeah.
And I don't know how people get comp titles. The closest I've come is like, well, this tiny aspect of this book and this tiny aspect of this book, and that's it. There's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It
so
seems like a magical art.
That's part of the problem. So, but yeah.
So you're pretty prolific. How many books do you have out right at the moment?
I have 4 books out. And
Okay.
My 5th one's coming out probably February.
Okay. And so when you write, so you write young adult fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, that's what I publish now. Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you write before?
My first book was adult fantasy, and then I wrote kind of like a middle grade to YA.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
And it was like more of a sci-fi, and then I wrote another adult, and then I just went straight YA. So.
And what do you find the differences between the two? Like, what kind of made you kind of gravitate towards that?
Pacing was the main thing, because I thought of who I wanted to read my books, and again, this was like 6 years ago when they were like, yeah, boys don't read books, so they're not really taking male authors to publish boy books because boys don't read. And I was like, yeah, they do play games a lot and stuff like that, and they're doing other things, and so they're not reading as much. And like that actually kind of ticked me off, because I was like, I flipping loved to read, and reading was amazing, and I enjoyed it so much. I still played video games too, but it was like,
yeah, totally,
yeah,
me too.
But I got so ticked off that like I couldn't find books that I actually liked, because for me, I also tried to avoid certain content in books. Like I didn't like spicy books, but that was literally all it was. YA as a genre didn't even exist when I was a kid, I feel like. So I would be reading something like Chronicles of Amber or whatever, like just Zelazny stuff, which is like super ancient, I feel like, or I don't know. Yeah, so like there wasn't like a YA genre necessarily, and so I wanted books that like boys could read. I wanted books that I mean girls could read too. I wanted it to appeal to both, and I wanted it to have content that that they wouldn't have to be like scared that something might come up that they don't want to be exposed to or whatever, right? And that was like my whole thing, is I had this kind of like I don't know, that was like my whole idea I was kind of trying to champion. And so yeah, that's kind of why I lean towards YA, is just I wanted, also I like fast-paced stuff, right? So if a boy's going to read, it has to be like faster paced a lot of the time, and it has to be easier. I don't want like info dumping stuff. So I just tried to make it as easy as possible, and that was the focus. And it just kind of landed in that whole YA genre, basically.
Okay. So when you're writing, do you okay, so we all take different approaches to writing. When I'm in a project, I try and here again, I say this because right now I'm trying to write 500 words a day, and it's just not happening because life is life. But usually when I'm in a project, I write 500 words a day, and I'm a pantser. Jen, I think we're all pantsers here.
Yeah.
So Brady, what is your style? Like?
Trying the other, it's hard.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a pantser, but I also do like to outline a lot of stuff. I think that gives me a really good objective in mind. So I want to know how the book ends. I want to know like some key parts that occur during the story. I have to make sure that I know that each character has their own motivation that they're trying to accomplish, and so that that kind of drives the story as well. But I like to think of, or like to highlight things that are going to occur in the story, and then I'll do a character personality sheet that I kind of plan out before I draft up the story and everything too. So I do like a lot of stuff like that, like in the building phase, and then I also do like a lot of research. Like this new book I'm working on is going to be based on some Scandinavian folklore and TTRPG type stuff. And so I really wanted like a lot of really cool stuff to intermingle with that. And so that involved reading lots of, I read some of the Icelandic tales, that they have shared. I've read just a bunch of like historical type things regarding like Scandinavian folklore and what they look like and stuff like that. So there's a lot of research there. And just some of the tales that they have, or like the folklore that they have. I wanted to like read too much of that. Did a lot of that stuff as research, and then from there it's just full steam ahead. I just usually try to write 1,000 words a day, or like 1,200 words a day. I like to beat my record and kind of do that pretty quick, and that's kind of how I just steamroll it. But that's my approach. Is I like to I have a rough outline, and then I'll fill it in and enjoy.
Okay.
So a
I'm
little
jealous.
bit on the planting side.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was more like that. I mean, because that'd be nice. I feel like I'm looking at a brick wall every time I sit down.
Looks like NV2000 had a question for you. What kind of things do you put on TikTok? Is it your book updates, or you did talk about writing, book news, or how to write? What seems to get you the most traction?
Couple
That's a
different
great question.
So I will say it's very strategic. Okay, and I've posted a variety of very different things over time. I used to do a lot of humorous stuff, which was fine. You get a lot more exposure, a lot more people kind of follow. I try to avoid drama type things, but sometimes I do a little bit of that. But for the most part, I'm trying to post hooks. Like I might just do a video. Like here's something that does really well. I have a Ring Dweller series. It was inspired by Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I might just do a video that says, "Hey, what about a complete fantasy series inspired by Prince Zuko?" And that's it. I just put text on the screen and then just post that. And yeah, that might get 10,000 views sometimes. It might get 200 views sometimes. But just stuff like that. I mean, I had one of those videos that got like 3.2 million views on Instagram, right? And I made $2,000 on Amazon sales that month, and I sold out my entire inventory of omnibuses that I have, for my direct sales, right? So stuff like that, where it's just, you come up with different little hooks, and I just post those, or I'll do. I've done aesthetic videos where I just make it, hey, this is what my book looks like, and then I'll do a fun little video transition that takes a little more time to build, but those have done well too, and that kind of helps get some of the right audience. So yeah, there's a lot of variety. It takes tons of research.
So you talk about your omnibus or your books, and now are you are you exclusive or are you wide as far as like Amazon?
Yep. All my books are in KU currently.
Okay, all right, and then so let's talk about the Kickstarter, because I know that I saw. I'm looking at your website, and your website's fantastic, very well done.
Oh, good. I made it myself, so I'm glad.
No, we're talking later. I need help.
Yeah, if you took a look at mine, it definitely needs a doctor. But so tell us about that process. How'd you get involved in Kickstarter, and what are you seeing? Honestly, I really don't know enough about the process to even ask pertinent questions. So I'm sure I'll have more, or I'm sure we will all have questions as you explain it, or how you got involved in doing that and what you're seeing in it.
Yeah, well, I'm still kind of a baby in terms of using Kickstarter super effectively. My first one did better than I think most people's first Kickstarters do. I think it was only like $9,000 something or whatever. But the idea was that
only
fun story.
Just kidding.
Story that I had a lot of good fans by then. I feel like I created a good community, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna experiment, do a Kickstarter just to have fun and kind of make a really fun edition for my book and create some art for it, because I wanted it was $1,000 to make this art that I wanted. So I went and commissioned some art for it, and did a kind of a simple Kickstarter for it. And for me, it was more so of like, I want to feed my super fans a little better. And if you've heard of that term of a super fan, this is that person who is going to buy everything you put out, right? I wanted to feed them something and kind of like help generate that with something with them, so that they could be like, oh, cool, I get to have something special from Brady, right? So that was kind of the idea behind it. And it did better than I thought it was going to, which was great. And then I just saw that my friends have been doing some other stuff a little more with that in a more successful approach. And I had one friend who, Paul Lafferty, she got $65,000 for her very first Kickstarter, which was amazing. And so I was looking at that kind of concept, and I was like, cool, you know what I want to do next is just, I want to do an adult fantasy. And that way it's, because most of the people, honestly, most people reading my books, they're adults. I don't have very teenagers reading my books anyway. So figured I'd write something for them, since that's kind of who has been getting drawn to my style. And so I figured I would, target something there. I'd look at something very popular and kind of create a story out of it. And I would launch it as a Kickstarter first, and that's how I present the series. So, which is a little backwards. I know some people will publish the series and then they'll go back and do a special edition, but I figured I would do a launch with a special edition and, kind of go about it that way. So that's my idea. Also, this is going to also sound kind of funny, but like, I don't want to pay taxes on the money I make from authoring. I'm still going to, but so my idea was like, hey, let me go ahead and like spend all this money I made. So I'm buying a bunch of art, and I hired like the most expensive artist I could find, who's actually like really good. And he cost $2,000, so he's giving me $2,000 for my cover. But again, he's been doing pretty. He's big. He's a big name right now, so I figured I would do something like that because again, I wanted to create quality and have a really, really high quality book. I wanted to kind of level up what I was producing, and so Kickstarter is kind of a way of doing that for me. So I can create something super fancy and people will love it, and it's also just gorgeous and they can show it off. Mm-hmm. And I found a lot of success with TikTok Shop as well. And so if I have something beautiful on TikTok Shop, you're in a good place, right? So that's part of the idea too, is I want to have something that's almost like specifically for that kind of audience. So that's part of what I feel like I want to just generate, in addition to just creating a good story with it. So, but there's a lot of work that goes into creating a Kickstarter, like more than I thought, because you have to think of what types of things people can purchase, how they can kind of spend more money, and you have to think of these like tiers that they can do, and then what kind of rewards are going to be involved and how you're going to market it. And I was like, let me just, I have a very ambitious goal of getting 1,000 pre-launch followers is what they call them. So you can kind of put your Kickstarter into pre-launch, and you can give like a little short description of the book, and like maybe some artwork that you've made for it already. And people can follow the Kickstarter. So that as soon as it launches, they get notified, and then ideally you raise a bunch of money pretty quickly, right? So that's kind of this theory that I'm trying to approach with it. It takes some work. So I got a lot of work that I'm putting in to try to make that happen. But there's a lot of fine details I could go into if there are questions there, but that's kind of the general idea.
So the special editions, does it have a different cover or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I'm kind of curious how that process works, because usually when you do print on demand, do you have to use a different ISBN for that, or how do you go about that?
So here's the interesting thing. So when you talk about ISBNs, that's if you're going to be putting it in a store.
Right.
Mine aren't in any stores. I'm the only person that sells these, so I don't care what. I don't have to do an ISBN. It is going to default, like put a little barcode thing in there.
Okay? Right.
But I'm only printing it through one provider, that is Ingram Spark. At least this is my special edition for that, right? So
okay.
It was just Ingram Spark. That's all. In terms of like special, right? It's got its own cover that is different than the cover of the trilogy. Okay, so this is the trilogy. It's got 3 different books in there. That's different, right? Whereas the omnibus, it's got its own sleeve. There's like, this is the $1,000 artwork that I commissioned as a case laminate, right? So usually when you're doing a Kickstarter, you're going to be doing something special or unique.
Right.
Okay? I also threw something else in that was very unique to the Kickstarter that nobody could get anywhere else. So I have this novella that I wrote, and people could only get that through the Kickstarter as like a printed version. So that's the only place they could get that from. So that's kind of the idea, is you make it very exclusive, and that way you're drawing on a different audience than you would have otherwise, right? Because there are some people where they're not really buying stuff. Kickstarter is kind of like the only place they buy that kind of thing. So TikTok is like one audience group, or Instagram is one audience group, or Facebook ads is a different audience group, right? Kickstarter is, you think of it as a different way of getting to different people. And the way to draw them in is to say, hey, you can't get this anywhere else, right? So that's kind of what you're appealing to when you do that. So yeah, special edition, you're gonna expect to buy something that they're not going to get anywhere else.
So it's basically a value ladder, and the higher you go, the more exclusive it is, and that's really neat. For those of you that aren't with us live, that was beautiful. Your cover for your special edition looks really nice. You did a good job.
Thanks.
I'm very jealous.
It was a great artist. I try to coach. He's like a Magic the Gathering card artist and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I'm aiming for those type of artists. My next series that I'm doing on Kickstarter, that's what I'm going for. So each piece should be pretty prime. They're really hard to get. I had to pull out my sales skills to get her to, to convince her to make that piece for me. So
that's
she said no twice.
Wow.
And how'd you find them? Did you just like stalk them or?
Yeah. So actually, it's oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the platform. It's not on Instagram, but it's ArtStation. So I had to go to ArtStation and look for them there because there's like a different level of professionalism that you find on there. There are some like total like AI artists that try to do stuff on there all the time.
Right.
But if you just find like honestly, just look and see if they do video game design or if they do like card design for companies. Like if they say it's a commission, if they're already someone that's getting paid to do stuff, then you know that they're legit basically. So it's a pretty easy way to justify the artists on there. And again, if they're on ArtStation, they're usually pretty dang good. So that's kind of been my deciding factor for selecting people. There's still a lot of them on Instagram too, but what you'll notice is that you have a lot of amateurs, which is they're okay. They have their own place,
right?
But amateur like character art for an epic fantasy book, probably not the place to do that. When you're looking at epic fantasy, you're gonna find you're looking at you're gonna get a dragon. It's gonna be an amazing dragon. It's not gonna be cartoonish like some of the starter ones.
Yeah, you see a bunch of that.
Has its place, of course, but at least with my genre, what I'm doing an epic fantasy in this case, you've got to get someone who's doing Magic the Gathering cards. Something like.
All right, so we have another question from Kenvy. Does not having ISBN for your books make it hard to get your books on Goodreads? Is Goodreads helpful for you at all as an author? Also cool. You are looking for Magic the Gathering artists. They are very good.
Yeah. So first thing about Goodreads, nope, doesn't matter. If you list it with Ingram Spark, it pretty much just showed up on there automatically as soon as I did that. So yeah, it pretty much just went to Ingram or went to Goodreads immediately. I don't think that Goodreads really matters, honestly. It's a good place to kind of have some reviews. I'm not sure it results in sales at all, but yeah, more so like social media is going to be kind of the place that is, at least for me, that's my driving seller. Is I just market myself on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and that's where I get all my sales from essentially. So, and
one thing about Goodreads is that if you've got two editions, because if you have one that's like KU, it's going to have one ISBN, it's going to be one cover. You're going to have a different one from Ingram Spark. All you got to do is make sure that the Goodreads librarians link them, and then it'll be one listing.
Yeah, which you can do. So
easy.
Yeah, the thing about
it takes time, but it's easy.
Yeah, and the thing about like the Magic the Gathering artists too, it's funny because I grew up playing that game because my dad owned a card shop, and so I grew up with that whole wonderful nerdy life, and I loved it. And I always admired the art on there, and I loved that like I could guess the artist just based on how the art looked. Every time. That was kind of this game I would play, is I would guess who the artist was just based on the artwork. And so yeah, I've admired that for a very long time, and so being able to hire one of those artists was a dream of mine. So, and I have another one that I've recruited for some of the stuff I'm doing with this next one.
And if I got into fantasy, I'd want to find some of the old Dragonlance or the Forgotten Realms artists, man.
I've got the original 9 books up there on my shelf. So
good stuff.
The one challenge with fantasy I have in the old fantasy is, I'm sorry, but some of the women's armor is not practical.
Yeah, horrible.
As a science fiction author, that drives me crazy. I'm like, that is not effective, except to get someone to pick up the book.
Yes, but for a 15 and 16-year-old boy, I guess it works for
them. They pick up the book.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, that's awesome, man. I think we're pretty much running to the top of our show. Do we have any other questions?
I always like to end with the question. My last question is always, what would you say to new and struggling authors to give them hope?
Oh yeah, just little by little is okay. As long as you chip away at something. The hardest thing for someone to do is to finish a book originally. So just make sure you finish it, and just know that like it's always a progression. Comparison is not the best thing to do most of the time. So just know that it's your own story. It's your own growth. It's your own. You're doing your own. You're paving your own path, and that's fine. So the people that might have more experience than you or who have written longer, just use them as resources, right? Like you can be a resource too. You can help other people. Find an accountability group for writing. That's what I do. I have 2 other friends who they haven't finished books yet, but we still text each other every day about our word counts and stuff like that. And it's just
that's cool.
Helping each other, and we're still going, right? And I've been texting them for 8 years now, and they still haven't finished, and that's okay. So, but I keep encouraging them, and yeah. So
You might not be old enough, but that's when I threatened them to Tanya Harding them.
yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. It's
1990s ice skating reference.
Oh,
Tanya
okay.
Harding.
Yeah.
Kimmy
Kimmy
on Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, Kimby says, thanks for the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. We
Thank you for
appreciate
being
you and your
here,
questions.
yeah.
Thank you for engaging with us. I do have one question. If you were to start over, or if you could go back to talk to yourself when you first started, or when you first decided to really get involved, what would you tell yourself to do differently?
I would probably just be more involved in stuff, make some more friends, make more connections that way. I think that makes a big difference, honestly. So having some good connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Well, man, Brady, thank you so much for spending your time with us this evening. Again, I think it was a great show. You provided a lot of food for thought, not only for our audience, but also for us as well. So thank you for that. And then everyone else, man, thank you for spending your time with us. And what do we have next week? We have
Katie Cooper, I believe, is our
Katie
guest.
Cooper. And so we're looking forward to having them on. So, yeah, everyone have a great week, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
Bye.